People often ask if Mormonism is a Christian religion, and I like the response of my emerita colleague Jan Ships here at IUPUI, who says that Mormonism is Christianity plus.
It's an interesting sort of discussion point, because if you think back historically, we were a people who were set apart from the culture of America, if you will, physically. I mean, we literally, the members of the church got up and walked out and went to Utah and started their own culture there. And it's really come full circle to the point where now a member of the church, as being a member of the church, whether it's here or really anywhere in the United States and Canada, is really a matter of looking at, are we really different, and in what ways?
Mormonism's founder, Joseph Smith, talked about restoring the true church, and people often wonder what he meant by that. Mormonism is, to its followers, a restoration first and foremost. It restores something that was lost, and in this case, Joseph Smith meant the restoration of the authentic teachings and practices instituted by Jesus Christ, but that were lost in part because some of these teachings and practices were recorded on the specifically Latter-day Saint portion of the scriptures, the Book of Mormon and other Mormon writings, that were then restored to the world, according to Mormon belief, when Joseph Smith discovered the plates containing the Book of Mormon and recorded other revelations given to him that became part of the larger body of Mormon scripture. And so all of that together is thought of as the Mormon restoration, the restoration of the true beliefs and practices that Christians were meant all along to follow and believe.
There's often a question about why we're so interested both in our own history as a people and in our personal family history. And I think one of the significant issues as a people is that our history is important to us because it reminds us of how significant events that have taken place in your history have formed you as a people.
Another question about Mormonism that people ask often is, where does the term Mormonism come from? And it's derived from the Book of Mormon itself. Mormon was a character in the Book of Mormon, the last of the military leaders of the Nephites. The Nephites are the like the protagonist, the central tribe focused on in the Book of Mormon. So Mormon, this Nephite leader, recorded his experiences, and his account was finished by his son Moroni, who then ultimately buried the record in the form of the gold plates, and then centuries later reappeared in angelic form to Joseph Smith.
The history led to violence by people who would develop these hard feelings. And Joseph Smith, for example, was on a Saturday night pulled from his home and tarred and feathered and his children, were sick because it's in the middle of winter, and the next day, everyone shows up to find out how's he going to react to all of this. And his reaction was to stand up on Sunday morning after being up all night Saturday night trying to have all of this tar and all these feathers pulled from him, and to preach a sermon about what it means to love one another. And that, I think, affects personally our ability to say, persecution happens. We can't insulate ourselves from that, but we can react to it in a way that is not just defensive, but also recognizes.
Mormonism has been controversial in American history from its beginnings, but the reason for the controversy has changed over time. In the beginnings of Mormon tradition, the controversy was primarily over plural marriage, the practice of men taking more wives than one. And this was first revealed to Joseph Smith, the prophet and founder, and then after his murder, polygamy or plural marriage was continued under his successor Brigham Young, who took the practice to Utah and began a long-running battle with federal authorities over the practice of plural marriage in that part of what is today the United States.
Our reaction to that, I think, is important as members of the church, because even though it's not been part of our doctrine for better than 100 years, we still get the questions, and so we have to be prepared to answer those in a way that people will understand. And so not only just explaining the fact that it's not part of our doctrine anymore, but also to not be defensive about that.
But today, because of the growth of the LDS Church, this city has been identified as the site of a new temple, and I think that is a metaphor for Mormonism's coming into the mainstream of the U.S. religious landscape in a real way.
There was a time when the people of Israel wandered the desert and they carried that tabernacle with them. They had the temple, if you will, as a traveling reminder of their responsibility for temple worship. And then when the church, when the Latter-day Saint Church found itself located someplace, they weren't wandering anymore, and a temple was built, I can look back now and see what has happened over the course of time since the Salt Lake Temple was built, and see that this is now a restoration sort of in reverse, where now the Lord has said to his living prophets, the temple should be close to the people. And so now we have the opportunity where not everybody travels to Salt Lake City to worship in the temple, but rather those temples are being built in places where the saints have gathered in various parts of the world, including Indianapolis, Indiana.